When you said the ego can't let go into the absolute because it's terrified to face the emptiness, how can the ego, or does the ego gain that courage to face the emptiness?
No, what happens is suddenly there's a realization that you're the witness of the ego. You thought you were the ego, but you're not. The ego is just a bunch of thoughts going across the screen of the mind, and you were witnessing it and entranced, literally hypnotized by those words, and identifying. When the word or the thought I came, consciousness identified and think that, well, that thought is about me. I want a cookie, says the thought, and so then the body goes for the cookie. But that is only a thought, and when you realize you're the witness of it and you say, no, I don't really want a cookie, that thought is crazy, and it will be deleted then from the program, and you'll realize that that thought belongs to an operating system, which is a belief system about who you are. And that system was one that you took in when you were a young child and had certain needs and certain fears and certain motivations that were only appropriate to childhood. But they're somehow still there, even though you've outgrown them, because you never went through that rite of passage of ego death and rebirth with a truly adult consciousness. So everyone's running around, whether they're 40, 50, 60 years old, still as kind of a 3-year-old child, and they regress to that state, even though there are higher strata that have been added to it. But as soon as there's stress, you fall into the terrible twos, and you have a temper tantrum or a meltdown or some other dysfunction. And so the problem is that we've never let go of this larval stage of development of consciousness, and even though we've built higher levels of the structure of the ego, it has always been based on these initial false beliefs that even though they may have been modified with time, they still remain as traces of feelings of trauma, of self-doubt, of fear of abandonment, all of those things that a child will feel because of its inability to use its body, its motor skills haven't developed, it's still breastfeeding, or it's still in a state of total need of the mother's presence, etc. All of that has been outgrown, but the psychological operating system that was there then got repressed but didn't get eliminated. And so we have to go so deep within that we find that and burn that in the fire, and then all the other obsolete strata that were built as defenses against that one. And then finally we're free to discover who we really are. That's true spiritual birth. So there's physical birth, there's psychological birth as an ego, there's development, and then there has to be ego death, and then rebirth as pure spirit. That's the phase that we must now be in, and free ourselves from all of those confining beliefs of the past. And when we do that as a microcosm and then as a collective communal energy field, then the morphogenetic resonance of that vibration of spiritual freedom will spread throughout the world and enable a great awakening and a great renaissance of our divine nature that will miraculously change the trajectory of history. But we must make this shift now.